Welcome to the Vision Profiles podcast. Join us, two dedicated Apple Vision Pro users, as we dive into everything from hardware and software to apps and the latest updates in the world of Apple Vision Pro. I'm Marty, a faculty member at Kent State University, podcaster, and avid Apple product fan.
And I'm Eric Bolden. I work in IT, but I'm interested in, lots of photography stuff.
Lots of photography stuff.
Which will eventually be great to view on the Vision Pro, but not edit yet. Sorry.
So
it was a bad edit week. This it was like, oh, this is perfect. Let me just edit that one little thing, and you can't. Or, oh, hey, I want to compare three pictures. I took one on the new iPhone, and I took one on the headset, and I took one with a separate camera, and then I told the headset to make it 3D, and I thought I'll just compare the three. And it was relatively difficult to tell which was which. So next time I do this, I'm going to put a little card next to all of them because I, for whatever reason, could not find the little info button that says, hey, what took this picture?
What's the bug in the background? I want to know what the bug is in your background.
The butterfly?
Yeah.
Yeah, no help from the TV audience over there. What is it? A Buckeye, maybe?
I was going to say it. I think I've seen that before.
I think it's coming from Buckeye.
Yeah, coming from Ohio, we take our Buckeyes very seriously, and that looks like if I was going to name a butterfly something, Buckeye would be one of the options there. So I think you're on target with it.
Not quite as common here, though.
Yeah. In Wisconsin. I had an interesting thing that happened this week with me. I have these international teachers and for part of a grant, and many of them want to go to the Apple store. And so I have to remind them the stipend that we give you is for food, not for Apple products, because you won't be able to eat. But we went up. They did some window shopping. They have some ideas of what they want to get. And we were in the store. I said, do a Vision Pro demo. And, I never did one myself when I got mine. I picked it up in-store day and never did one. And so the best part for me was I got to sit with Jonathan of Eaton Place. That's the Eaton's. It's in a suburb of Cleveland, the Eaton Place store, and watch him do the demo. Now, I'm supposed to be doing a demo on Wednesday, and I don't think I'll have all the fun stuff that Jonathan had, but he had iPad minis, and in the iPad minis, they had an app that he was able to connect to the devices with. And eventually I was watching him do it from across the table, and I said, do you mind if I come up and just stand behind you and watch what you're doing? He's like, no. Not a problem. So I came around, and he had three guys with the headsets on, and he was able to, with this app, see what they were seeing and give them directions on what to do to move on to the next piece. He tried some of that verbally, and it worked most cases. In a couple of cases, he's like, I'm just going to close out the app. And then he hit a button, hit an icon on his thing, close the app out. And I was like, this is cool, because the idea is to get people to use it, not to spend a lot of time teaching them how to use it. And so I said, any chance that app is available for the public to use? And he's like, no, that's proprietary. Because I would have loved to have that arrangement with that he had. And it is very nice. And they really have it figured out. I think at one point, he probably would have taken people in other places, but he's like, okay, let's just go to the finale. I think after about a half hour, he's like, you guys are done. And took them into the immersive kind of edited best hits of immersive reel that they do at the end of it. And they were pretty impressed with that. But it was different to watch a demo done, particularly in the because we started talking about 2.1 and 2.0. And I said, this looks a lot different in the process. And all the machines were on 2.1, or 2.0. So they were running that that part of it. It was good. It was good. And somebody who's in the guest room right now, Tafe, was the person who one of the people who did the Vision Pro demo
Huh.
with me. And I had a chance to talk to him about it today, and he was real impressed with it. And he also is very knowledgeable in terms of tech to begin with, and so it was good to get his read on it. So that was just a different experience to watch the demo since I'd never had one. We have some news. Really, what we have is many articles written about the same thing. But let's start off with the betas. I kind of feel like we should have some sort of banger. When I said let's start off with the betas, there should be like a sound effect in the show. But I put on Vision 2.12 beta, which was the latest beta. I think it happened, well, it might happen last Tuesday. And have you had any opportunity to look at that?
No, I decided I was going to try and live betaless for a little while.
Yeah.
I thought I was living too close to the edge, and I want to write some instruction sets where I know everybody can do the same thing and not everybody has the beta. So I thought, well, for a little while I will live without the beta because I think there'll be another update pretty soon. So I won't have to.
Okay. I'm doing the chicken dance. Since you won't get into the betas. The thing we always have trouble with figuring out what the betas are. Now I go to Reddit because there are lots of people who are on the latest beta. They will find something to check out. And that's the kind of cool part that I get from Reddit. And in this case, it makes sense. Yeah, I'll include the links to the developer notes and links to the new beta and what it says 2.1 is going to do. Of course, they never really know what 2.1 is going to do and 2.1.2 is going to do. But somebody in Reddit discovered this thing that happens when you're in an environment and you have like full environment. If you put your hand out in front of the environment, you'll get sort of a hazy little outline because it's not real clean. The user claimed that now is pretty seamless, that it's
Oh,
removed that. So it's something
oh,
for us to test out that,
okay.
and it might have been the lighting conditions that the person had, but he was saying or she was saying it's something like Photoshop good, that it's a clean edge now between your hand and whatever you have in the environment. So little steps, but not big dramatic things that people hope for with it. Yes, we still don't have the I keep forgetting Mac virtual display, with the 4K virtual display yet. But everybody keeps hoping for that. So that's what I could tell was new from the betas. And I guess that's going to be my segment because
Yeah.
you're beta chicken right now.
Yeah, but I can talk about everything I'm doing without having to worry about saying something about something I'm not supposed to talk about.
Well, we're supposed to be, this is supposed to be informative for the listeners about what's happening next. And
Yeah,
if you're
I just
riding in the
have an
caboose,
excuse.
yeah. So competition, a little bit of article about Meta. Meta, they had Meta Connect last week, and they were talking about getting a cheaper priced Meta out. And they came out with, did you see any of this? The Meta 3, what is it? The Meta 3E, I think. Or maybe
The
it's Meta 3S.
S,
It's S, yeah. Yeah.
S.
Yeah. If you do a side by side comparison, there's not a lot of difference between the 3 and the 3S. There's a $100 price cut in it. That's one thing. Visual field, the visual acuity is similar to the 2. So it's almost a little bit of step down on the 3S. It has a slightly longer battery life. It has, some other kinds of brief little functions that you'll never use. It really is not any big advancement. I kind of felt like it was a announcement that really didn't have anything exciting about it. And I, of course, went and ordered one.
So it works.
Before. No, before
Oh.
I before I looked at the specs, it's like, oh, it's let me go and bam. And I ordered it and then I read the specs and it was like, okay, I want to unorder this thing. I don't want it now. Um, and I couldn't because my card has already been charged. So I have to wait for it to come to Kent and for me to send it back to them in order to get my refund on it. So the Meta 3S was really kind of in terms of it as a release. You don't have a Meta?
No.
Okay. All right. Well, getting ready for this group on Wednesday, I took my Meta out of the closet, my Meta 3.
Uh-huh.
Figured I'd better get it updated. I better get all the apps done. And I put it on my head, and the first thing I noticed was, damn, this thing's light, which is which is not the first point of awareness you want when you've just spent $3,500. Because I hadn't had it on my head for for a year. It was like
Mm.
really light. And so I did get everything updated, and I've got that ready for the demo. I'm going to do with the Apple Vision and also with the Meta. With this international teaching group on Wednesday. So,
So was the
um,
display different enough for you to notice?
yeah, yeah, there was a bit of much more of a screen door effect in the
Oh.
display. Now, I was in not a terribly well lit room. I mean, if I would have had all the lights on, things would have probably been a little clearer. But yeah, you're right. I haven't looked through it in a year. And the display, that was the first thing after I realized it was light. It's like, okay, so what does it look like now looking through this device? I think they've done some updates where their interface has changed. I know that because I did the update for the interface, and the interface seems, I don't know, a little bit more like swiping pages or swiping windows. So it feels like a little bit like it has that Apple Vision Pro kind of interface to it. But yeah, we'll see. I will have more time to play with it on Wednesday when I'm doing the demo of it with the group. And again, I still don't see it as a computing device. Now, Meta, in one of the articles we have in here, apparently they're going to discontinue their pro version, which is $1,000, and it basically has some increased resolution and better cameras, and I don't know if it's changed a faster processor or not, but that was sort of the top of the line in terms of cost wise and in terms of quality. And they've decided just to drop that line. And I can see because I couldn't find any reason for moving up to the Meta Pro. And
Mm.
if everybody's purchasing at a cost base of around $500 or less, that's what your audience is. That's what your customers are. So unless they're going to really do something that's dramatically different, that pro version that they're dropping just seems like they're not. It didn't catch. It's not the niche in the market they're going for. I hate to keep talking about Meta on this, but there hasn't been a lot with Apple, except there's been a lot of articles about what the next Apple Vision Pro is going to be like. But a final thing on Meta is they are really pushing wearables, and one of the things they announced at Meta Connect was the Meta Orion. And it's not a purchasable product right now. And it probably won't be purchasable in 2000 until 2027. It's a pair of glasses. I don't know. The only way I can describe it is like Elvis Costello frames, really kind of thick black frames. And it has two layers in it. It has an inside kind of frame covering the inside. Then it has an outer frame that is also meant to be a projection screen. Apparently, the device will project on that outer screen, and the viewer will be able to see that. And they showed there's a video where they invited one guy in to kind of go through the whole demo. It was a really controlled step-by-step demo. And this device is tethered to an external like puck that you carry in your pocket. And so it's not an independent device. to the degree in terms of power like
Mhm.
the Vision Pro is. So it's generating some of its stuff off device or off glasses, and the video was really kind of okay. He's going to do a FaceTime, or not a FaceTime, what, a Facebook call with Mark Zuckerberg, and he shows up in the FaceTime call, and then he comes in the room and they're doing some things like they're doing virtual ping pong back and forth, or pong. It's not even really ping pong. And I was like, okay, there's not much there. And then the thing that killed it for me was currently it's $10,000. So they're hoping between now and 2027, if it even turns up to be a device, they got to bring that price down. But since it's a prototype at this point, they've announced it, effectively 3 years ahead of time. I don't know what that was about, other than so the shareholders would feel comfortable that they're moving in that direction, or because they promised to put something like a wearable out by 2027. The idea of premiering it now. Think about the rollout for Apple Vision Pro. Apple Vision Pro was like 18 months, we're going to have this, and they rolled it out. It was
Yeah.
tough, but they rolled it out, and it's gotten better and better. So doing it almost 3 years ahead of time and saying, well, here's our $10,000 prototype, just seems ridiculous.
It's a little early, other than being able to say we have AR glasses.
Yeah. Well, the device has a wristband on it, and the wristband is used because you can do certain hand movements, like rolling your thumb across the top of your fingers, and that picks up the muscle movement, the wristband, and that acts as the interface. So it's using some of that in terms of, and I think it does also optical in terms of fingers and what you can do. But really, the wristband is the interface that it's picking up on that muscle sensation in order for it to be an interactive piece with whatever you're doing. Yeah, I just thought it was kind of it was interesting to see, but it was disappointing. It was like, I don't know if this is going to convince me that you're really in the market, because it's too far away, and at this point the price point, as you say, is too expensive. And if you were unwilling to maintain a $1,000 Meta Pro,
Yeah.
who's going to buy whatever that cost comes down? It's going to have to be significant in order for it to become a product that people will buy.
Well, it's an interesting strategy difference because, like many others have said, Apple would never show something until it was ready,
Yeah.
as opposed to plopping something out, explaining how it's going to work, and then saying, well, come back in a decade. But but it's at least something for people to think about.
Yeah, yeah, like I said, I'll have the links. Listeners, viewers might want to just click on those links, because I think the articles will give you a good idea of what this thing looks like and how it operates. So look for that in our show notes, either on YouTube or attached to the podcast that we do. Let's talk about Tafe in the chat room said, and the app can't control more than, he's referring to the fact that I mentioned that I really wanted that proprietary app. He couldn't get it, and the app can only control one device, because the guy had to ask somebody, please bring me out another iPad, because I know I have three people doing it. So lots of rumors. Yep.
Oh, I was just going to say, regarding that, you can take the Vision Pro video and send it to an iPad. It doesn't help if you're watching a movie, anything with copy protection, but if you're looking at pictures or looking
Right.
at a presentation or whatever, that actually works pretty well. Or looking at panoramic images, you can have an iPad so that the other person can see what you're looking at, and bring up the panoramic picture, in the Vision Pro, and then you can look at different things, point to things, and have your finger interact with stuff and switch to different pictures, and that shows up on the iPad. So it's sort of a different way of doing kind of a walkthrough or showing pictures or however you want to look at it. That's harder to do any other way.
Yeah, I still have trouble with demos because the demos on the screen are just way too shaky for most people. And they're like, this is really kind of if you're looking at what I'm doing through the screen, it's like and I explained it to I think it was TAFE today. The idea, or no, I explained it to someone else today to our tech person. I said, your mind unscrambles that. So although that's what's coming to your eyes, your mind knows that your head moves slightly in this direction and will compensate for that. Now, that's what the video that you're getting, your brain compensates for. But the video that's going out, their brains, the people who are watching it, don't have that same compensatory mechanism because their body's not making the same micro movements that you're making with the headset on.
You
So,
have to be very slow. Yeah.
yeah, I know. And generally when I do demos, things get a little crazy. Something doesn't work, and then I'm not very slow.
And then you want to look
Uh,
over here and then grab something over
yeah.
here. And that's okay because when the other person's busy puking into a bucket because
That's
you're
what I
moving the screen all over the place, then you can get everything all set up. And then when they come back, yeah, it all works.
That's the first thing I thought of, the same thing you did. Your audience is all blowing chunks um, because they're watching, they're getting motion sick. So lots on rumors about the next Vision Pro. And it seemed like it was a feeding frenzy. Like one person wrote an article that kind of speculated 5 days ago, an article speculating that Apple's going to have lower resolution screens to make it more affordable. This is in the Apple Insider. And then it turned into like a feeding frenzy. And even Mark Gurman, with a Gurumer, as I call them, weighed in and said, well, there's three places they could go with this. There's three different ways they could do it. They could just continue to work on their device and lower the cost of the elements that are in it and still maintain some level of quality in the product. Then there's another that it seems almost like this is what Meta has done. We're going to offload for their glasses. We're going to
Yep.
offload the computing on a separate device, and your iPhone or your iPad will basically be the brain child for whatever you're wearing on your head. And the third option was just make a cheaper device. And I don't know if that's Apple's way of doing things. Let's lower the quality and people will be okay with it.
Yeah,
Anything
the way these rumors are coming out, my guess would be that there's more than one device, maybe three or four different devices, and the rumors are kind of combining all of them together and saying, "Well, we'll get this or we'll get this." And Apple builds lots of devices. They pick a subset of those devices to actually bring to market, and up until the last minute, it might or might not happen. And we always know devices will eventually get faster. There are some things with the way the Vision Pro works that I don't, at least with current network and connection speeds, I don't think you could send it to another device, have the other device do the processing, and make it come back fast enough to make that work. Something with a slightly lower resolution, you might be able to get that to work. Maybe that's not so bad. But if you're trying to do something that's augmented reality, where you're passing through the real world and then adding some extra stuff to it, it's got to be a good enough resolution so you don't get sick.
Yeah.
And so that it's believable that you're actually just looking out at the real world. So you can only drop the quality down so much before it's no longer believable. I think they'll try to avoid that if they can. Right now, there's the two chips that they're using, one for processing all the input and then one for the all the compute stuff. And I don't know if they will somehow be able to combine those two together, or there will be a second generation of that um, uh, unit to pull in all of the different input. That would
Yeah.
be kind of interesting.
I know we have a question about upgrading from Gern in the chat room. We'll get to that in a minute. I think that, one of the articles talks about a Apple Vision Pro, which is what we have, and maybe a new Apple Vision Pro,
Yeah.
lighter, faster. They're doing some really interesting, Apple's doing some really interesting in engagement with companies looking at different types of video screens for us to look at, which could also reduce the cost of it, but
Yes.
maintain the acuity and the quality of the video screens. So I think there's going to be an Apple Vision Pro 2. I think there might be an Apple Pro, Vision Pro, and there might be an Apple Vision Pro Air. And I think when you talk about particular product line, I think that's where you'll start to see choices in terms of cost and quality. But they're never going to put out anything that's going to reduce the quality to a point where there's no sense in it having a market. So yeah, I just think it's going to be a while till we see that breakdown or that type of grouping of products coming from Apple, because they're still trying to work out Apple Vision Pro 1 and what will survive or not survive, or what will change to Apple Vision Pro 2 before they even start to think of a Pro line or an airline with it. So we have quite a few of articles on the rumors, because, like I said, it was a feeding frenzy. Because I go through and I search for what's out there, and and I'll use RSS feed searches to find articles, and it's like, here's one on this. Oh, well, the day before that, somebody else wrote the same article. The day before that, somebody wrote the same article. Wouldn't you know it, Mark Gurman has said something about it. So now everybody's going to write another article about the same topic. So lots of articles, hard to pick out one, because there are some progressive changes, but they're all essentially saying the same thing and speculating on something that is at least a year off before we hear anything about a new product related to that. The big speculation was on the M5 chip, that, will the new version or a new version of Apple. And this, I think, was a Ming Chi quote. It's like, oh, I predict the future. Here's the future. New headsets going to have newest chip in it. My grandma could have predicted that. I mean, and then everybody got up and ran with it. And it's like, oh, the next Apple Vision Pro 2 is going to have an M5 chip. We don't know. Those will probably be, they'll probably be in the stock room, and they'll go, let's plug this one in. It's an M5. And yeah. Gurn asked, would you update if it was an M4 and M5, if the next version, let's say Apple Vision Pro 2 came out, it was an M4 and M5?
I don't think it matters.
Hmm.
Something faster than what's in there now, that would make a difference. Something that makes everything that Apple's working on with Apple Intelligence, that would make a difference.
Yeah.
Because being able to do more image processing, being able to have better text to speech, speech to text, and better interpretation of commands. That's something, if you don't have a keyboard, or the keyboard is, virtual hunt and peck, being able to just speak to it, that's potentially a big deal. So, but just like with this headset, where there's two different chips, if you have an M4 and a second helper chip that has been optimized,
in R2
then
or in R.
yeah, then it doesn't matter. The M4 already drops the power requirements down. And I think the timeline is maybe a little bit fast on these articles. Talking about 2025 with an M5, maybe 2026. I think they're looking at what happened with the iPad getting the M4 and then everybody else getting the M4, but that was more of a economics issue where it wasn't practical not to go to the M4. That push isn't going to be there to go from the M4 to the M5 unless there's need for it.
Well, you thought about this, or at least you came up with an answer better than I would have, in terms of faster processing, et cetera, et cetera. I'm not sure I'm doing anything with my device that requires faster processing. I mean, let me pose something here. if it is essentially an entertainment device to me or to anybody who wants to purchase it because they love the things, resolution might be important that they maintain the resolution, but does it need a faster chip to watch movies?
Maybe
And
not to watch movies, but if you want to watch movies and interact with it,
well, we can do that now, though, to a degree with the M2 that's in there. There's
yes.
nothing
But
about the
it's
movie.
only
Yeah,
it's to a degree, and if you're doing a lot of stuff with it, it seems to heat up. The advantage of the M4 is that
M5.
well, M4, M5, either one
Yeah.
is that they're smaller die size, cooler chips, less power hungry, less heat generating, and potentially you get slightly longer battery life. So if you get all of that, plus it can handle some of the Apple Intelligence stuff, for me that's kind of optional because I just want it to be able to do what it's doing now. I think that the expectation by next year is it needs to be able to do more than it physically can accomplish now. Now, that
So
being
let's go
said,
back.
I'm not going to get rid of my current headset because that actually does much of what I want it to do. I
Would
just
you
have a watch and I've got an iPhone 16 and I will keep updating those and that fills in the gaps for me.
would you get another M4 or M5 headset? Going back to Gurn's question.
In addition to what I have now or
Yeah.
replacing it, I certainly would consider replacing it. Maybe in addition, but I have sort of a special case in that right now I'm sharing a headset and
Hmm.
I don't want to share a headset next year or the year after
Yeah.
because I'm using it enough now. It's not fair to the other people that I don't let have it. So, um, I mean, I've actually even looked at getting another Vision Pro just so I've got more time and then I can do some other stuff back and forth. But
Mm.
with the new iPhone, there have been some changes in the new iPhone that make it less critical for me to
Right.
get second Vision Pro. Because the things like spatial images, I really like those quite a bit, and panoramas, and the iPhone 18 does a better job creating those images than the Vision Pro. And that wasn't the case of the 15. The headset did a better job than the 15, but the 16 does a better job than the headset.
Well, I'm looking at this. How many articles do I have? One, two, three, four, five, six, seven, eight. All about the M5 chip. So they'll be in the notes. God bless you if you want to go through all of them and read them. I'll tell you, it's amazing how. Of course, the first article I have is Mac Rumors, and they're not going to like this, but of course, I don't think they listen. Their articles, when it comes to betas at least, are real nothing burgers. There's nothing in it but the title. And so there are some other ones in there by Apple Insider, Mac Daily News, even something off of Medium, which you kind of have to take a grain of salt with because those are blogs basically that have been extended into long form pieces. And Apple Post, iDrop News, Mashable, and MacTrast. Some of the articles on this M5 chip all kind of started off with Ming Chi Kuo making a prediction 2025 Apple Vision Pro will receive an M5 chip and Apple Intelligence along with it. So who knows?
Now, the only thing I would say about all of those articles, if you read them kind of the other way and say, instead of saying, well, we'll get the M5 and then we can do whatever, instead look at, well, are there places where people are trying to push the headset slightly beyond what it seems to be able to comfortably do? That would be potentially a place to have a different processor. So,
Yeah.
in looking at the different articles, pulling out the unique elements from each of the articles of a capability that isn't easily there now, that is potentially a list of future features you might see. Even if you can see them like on a phone or an iPad or a computer now and not quite on the Vision Pro, maybe in 2026 or 7,
Mm-hmm.
new processor will pick up all of that.
I haven't tried this yet, but I because I haven't done it, but I know people who do it and swear by it. Video editing, being able to use something to do video editing and finding programs that will, and they're doing it. They're already kind of doing it on Vision Pro. I imagine that's probably a memory hungry process and also a processor hungry process that would be one of those high end things that would probably get things hot in the process in terms of doing that. So you might be onto something there. Let's switch a little bit to just, we've got three news articles, and one is this whole idea, and we're back to this Synchron. Remember, Synchron was the guy,
Yep.
was the one that attached the thing to a guy, earlier this year, and he was able to do some controlling of it. Well, Synchron now there's an article in Apple Insider, again, links in the show, saying that they have reached a 1 year milestone without adverse effects to patients, where they have put non-invasive brain computer interfaces with patients being able to control things that are, have been in clinical trials with it. Just interesting concept. It's called the Command Study, and there are no neurological safety events reported in the 12-month period. So patients didn't have issues neurologically with it. Minimally invasive approach has the potential to unlock BCI technology at a scale for millions of patients with paralysis and other mobility challenges. The goal of such implants is to allow people that have severe brain injury from events like stroke that result in paralysis to regain some level of functional independence. Man, this is cool.
Yeah, it's nice to see that.
Now, just get it down to an eyeglass size. That would be great at some point. I hope see something like that in my future. So they're putting this out. Synchron brain computer interfaces could control Apple Vision Pro with a kind of creepy illustration, but our listeners will have to go to the article to see what I'm talking about in terms of creepy illustration. Not necessarily a Vision Pro thing, but I thought I would mention because I have turned to them for years, iMore, and iMore is ceasing or has ceased to exist. And they wrote this thank you note. We have the link to it. It was picked up by other Daring Fireball and other sorts of media. And they're just kind of describing a little bit of their history, serving the Apple community, and just kind of being the end of an era for them in that. So
It does look like they're going to keep their articles up, though. So that's good news.
yeah, online readers can continue to access articles from the archive and the forum at https colon / forums.imore.com. So forums.imore.com. They'll remain active until November 1st to serve the community. So we're looking at another month. Our sister sites, Tech Radar and Tom's Guide, will also continue to publish all the latest news, reviews, and more from the world of Apple-based computing. And then they talk about WindowsCentral.com and AndroidCentral.com have the privilege of continuing to serve you as class-leading news. So just a note on that. And then our third article was an article that just popped up today. No, it didn't just pop up today, but close enough. I just found it today. Apple is researching how to use mixed reality of the Apple Vision Pro to provide pain relief for injuries. So article comes out of Apple Insider. Future Apple Vision Pro could help the injured avoid medication addiction. And my guess is that they're talking about ways in which they can create and generate material. Like if you have a headache, and so the headset will sing you a song instead of popping more meds. Yeah, they have a new app called Oxycodone. No, sorry, Eric, I'm
Yeah.
waiting for a facepalm on that. Effort says that this discomfort is occurring due to prior injury or ongoing medical condition. And they have some examples of sort of a flow chart and diagram of how this content will modify and mediate people in terms of any discomfort or pain that they have. Users' current attentive state of mind may be tracked using psychological or physiological sensors and used to adapt content to mitigate the perception of discomfort.
Yeah, it looks like
It's
they're
interesting. Yeah.
just trying a bunch of different things and then seeing what happens.
Yeah, I mean, before reading the article and getting a title on it, I thought, oh, they're just going to do relaxation apps. It's going to be, the way to modify and reduce people's reliance on medications, particularly for pain reduction, is teach them strategies that help them reduce pain. And that would be using the Apple Vision Pro as an interface to be able to do visuals. Now, we've talked about Trip, um, that app that is a meditative sort of relaxation. It's my favorite app in that territory. But I thought that's was what this would be about in terms of reducing need for pain reduction medication.
When they talk a little bit about things like simulating appearance changes, so if you have a burn injury, simulating an arm without the burn injury, yeah, and I don't know if that's a good idea or a bad idea, but it's an interesting concept. I think they're just looking at what are all of the different things that might be done. I'm not sure that they've actually looked at is that a good idea or a bad idea. I suppose it depends on the person.
Yeah, I think we're getting closer and closer to a world that's like I'll say terrible Bruce Willis movie Surrogates. I don't know if you remember that film.
I don't think I watched that one, but it sounds familiar-ish.
Yeah, where you send your robot out to do your day's work, and your robot's beautiful, and your robot's integrated in society, and so you can kind of create this false reality of presence. And the movie had some interesting issues in it, but it never got any traction. But when I hear things about putting in Vision Pro so you can change your appearance from burns or missing limbs and things like that, it feels like you're creating a replacement of yourself in that process. So,
But yeah, I suppose they're looking at it more of an alternate coping mechanism versus, drugging yourself into not caring. So,
we have Chuck Joyner in the chat room with us, and good time to remind listeners and viewers that we do Vision Pro Focus with Chuck, and we try to take topical issues. We did one on social and connection. We did one on entertainment, and maybe we're not there yet, but this to me, these kinds of stories, it's like an identity. It's the mixed reality of what is one's identity in that thing. So maybe that's another topical discussion we can have at that time. Show's gone close to an hour, so let's do this. Why don't we talk about new apps worth mentioning? And I noticed you put one in and Chuck just says he has ideas for the future. You put one in, I put one in. So let's talk about them. You go ahead and start with Out There.
So Out There, it's an interesting app. They describe it as an immersive musical experience. I guess, that kind of makes sense. You look at basically it looks like a little girl in a room shown in a picture frame. But then the picture frame's got depth. So it's like, looking at a shadow box or maybe looking at a raised stage in a small theater. And there's action and activity and music, and it uses, it's immersive music, depth to everything. I will give one warning, and that is, as it starts out, it's sort of depressing. The technically, it's really, really well done. It is well worth watching it. Just make sure you're in a good mood before you start. It is really cool, though. It plays, and you can sit and you can watch it. Try and watch it in a room big enough to have a clearance area so you can walk right up to to the stage, because you can then walk onto the stage, walk behind the performer, and then turn around and then see the audience. And the performance is happening all the way around you. The objects on the stage, everything else that's happening on the stage. So you can either be in the action on the stage watching the audience, or you can be in the audience watching the stage. Either way, and really a unique experience. Very, very well done technically. I enjoyed it quite a bit. As I said, it was just a tad bit depressing for me just in the first part, but it is so worth watching.
Do you remember, is there a price tag for it?
Believe there is. I don't think so.
Yeah, I mean, I saw this and thought this is pretty cute. I'm going into the link.
And
It
it's not
doesn't.
super long either.
Yeah, yeah.
So I don't know if it's something where they're kind of looking at it and then maybe they'll come back and do more. I really, really hope that there's a series of these,
Yeah,
because after this one, I would definitely be willing to pay for that.
yeah. Mine is similar. Mine is a little creepy, um, and intentionally so because it's called Close Encounters. And I don't know if I saw this on Reddit. When I'm going through Reddit, I'm looking for new apps, and I see something that looks really cool, and then I find out no, that's just a test demo. It's not an app. But this is an app that you can get. It's $5. I like to say you'll laugh, you'll cry, you'll kiss $5 goodbye. It actually is pretty good. And what I saw today was another post saying they're coming out with more episodes of this. Now,
Huh.
I don't know what that means in terms of cost. Again, not real long, but they take what they have and make good use of the time. You start by sitting in a dark room, looking out your windows. You're at an isolated place in the country, and you start to notice some alien activity. And they beam down, and then you see these shadows running around your house. And I don't want to ruin it. There are points in the video, and I think I'm going to need to go back and watch it again. And I love this. I love this thing about this, where the video poses a question. Do you
Okay.
try to get the attention, or do you try to ignore? And you make a choice. And I think that leads you down a different path. I
Okay.
have to go back and make a different choice and see if I get a different story outcome from it. Again, I thought the visuals, the interactive nature. Well, I wish there was more interactive nature. They did have those places where you had choice points, which I think is really cool in terms of if you can't really make it fully immersive and interactive, if you can create choice points, then you take people down different storylines, and that feels interactive
Yeah.
with the story. And the design was good. I can't complain about that. When it was over, I was like, oh, okay, well, it's over. I could have taken more. I would have liked to have had more. I hope they do some more with this. And what I saw today in Reddit was an announcement that they would be doing more in the series. I don't know if that means it's a different story or if it's an extension of this storyline. So it's called Close Encounters, and a fully immersive kind of eerie alien story. Unfortunately, no anal probing, no harvesting of organs. So disappointing in that way. But
So
for
not
five
not
bucks,
not very realistic, but uh,
$5, I guess I'll forego the anal probing. Anyways, those are our two apps, Out There and Close Encounters. And I think we should probably wrap this show if it's good with you, Eric.
definitely
Uh,
watch Out There though. It is
okay,
that
yeah,
good.
I will. I will. And you've sent me to a few apps that I've gone and checked out just from this. So, and if viewers or listeners have ideas for apps, we'll throw them in and we'll talk about them. The one that I presented last week, I picked up on Reddit and actually responded to the guy and said, we're doing a show tonight. We'll cover it on the show. So thanks for tuning in. And we'd love to hear from our listeners. If you have ideas or want to join an episode, email us at visionprofilespodcast@gmail.com. Our music is from Steve Combs. It's called Free Jazzy, courtesy of the Free Music Archive. You can learn more about us and the Vision Profiles podcast at our website, visionprofiles.net, and all of our other available podcasts at thepodtalk.net. Spread the word to other visionaries, and thanks for listening. We'll see you next time.